Hi, and welcome to Leading Digital's Leaders in Field Service podcast, where we talk to people that are transforming service and operations through innovation and customer focus. I am Alistair Clifford-Jones, the CEO of Leading, and today I'm delighted to welcome as our guest Ian Schmehl. He's the Operations Vice President at State Farm. Ian is a seasoned executive with a deep experience of customer experience, digital transformation, and field service operations. Previous to State Farm, Ian worked for AT&T, where he led complex teams across the US and Mexico, shaping strategies that streamlined operations, empowered employees, and put the customer at the center of everything they did. With a background which also spans telecoms and insurance, Ian brings a unique perspective on how to deliver consistent, high-quality service in industries where reliability and trust are non-negotiable. In this episode, we'll explore what it takes to build these high-performing teams, drive this operational excellence, and how digital tools such as AI are reshaping the way that service will deliver real value. The important thing about the conversation I had with Ian was he was talking about not only the technology, but also how important it was to empower the employee and bring them along the journey. So I hope you find this as interesting as I did. So let's get started. Hi, Ian. Can you possibly give us a quick overview of your career journey? You've had 25 years with another company and you're now currently working for State Farm. It would be great to find out how you got there.
Sure, I'm happy to. Actually, in my entire 25-year career, I spent the first 21 years with AT&T. I likely had 16 or 17 different roles spanning from sales to product development, business development. I had very technical roles involving agile methodology for development. And then I moved into even labor relations, worked on a number of different mergers between AT&T and other companies, and then moved to Mexico. Moved to Mexico City for the final 5 years of my career with AT&T, where I launched the first customer-facing contact center in Mexico that served the United States and those customers there. Approximately 4 years ago, I moved over to State Farm, where now I have responsibility for the service-oriented calls that come in or chats from our customer base or for the independent agent population at State Farm. What I would say is that because of the number of different roles that I've had to adapt, whether it had to do with my learning agility or with how it is I was leading people, whether it was a smaller organization or larger organizations, more confined to a geography or national in scope. And then even moving on to an international assignment, there were cultural aspects to that as well that were challenges, all the while having to deliver on the business results that were expected.
So has there been any leaders that have really helped you or any bits of advice that you could give that have had a long-lasting impact on your career?
There were a number of mentors, and I suppose before I even ventured into the workplace, my parents in particular, my mother had a significant influence on me, who always taught me that the two most important things in dealing with people were patience and humility. I think that actually guided me significantly in my journey, and that through the years when I would have different challenges, me pausing and realizing that was helpful. The other piece had to do with what you're doing in your daily life and utilizing a mirror, if you will. And if a number of different times you look in that mirror and it's actually not what you believe you are or who you want to be, you need to reconsider. You need to look at yourself and look at the situation and try to figure out what's right for you. And then finally, I've always believed that with the teams that I've had, that regardless of an org structure, everyone works with each other. Everyone works with me, not ever for me.
Now, in terms of field service, looking forward, is there one bit of technology is always changing, that really excites you at the moment?
I would say that it would be a mistake if I didn't mention AI. And more specifically Agentic AI, which is an emerging capability that comes to mind. It's a program or a system that's capable of interacting with its environment and also using those tools and data that are available in order to perform tasks and achieve those predetermined goals from a business perspective. Humans are still establishing the goals and setting the environments and providing those tools that are available, but that interaction with AI and that task execution relative to the process and it being autonomous, self-directed, continuously improving, that's an area where I think that there's going to continue to be advancement as it independently formulates and and executes a plan, it's also determining the best actions needed to reach those predefined goals that we have within an operation for an organization and ultimately for the customer that we're serving.
Do you see any challenges in terms of AI going forward?
I would tell you that I think that the technology is nascent. I think that there are a lot of hopes around it. I think that for me, the challenge ends up being the orientation of the product development, always having the customer at the center, realizing what the end goal is and working backward from there. Not taking for granted that you can just throw something against the wall and because it has AI tattooed on it, that it's always going to stick. I think that's probably one of the hardest things or one of the challenges that I see as it relates to the advent of the technology.
Do you see it transforming call centers in the future?
I do. I think that when you consider the contact center in its form today, irrespective of industry, that leveraging of AI and data, those analytics, in order to understand those customer preferences and behaviors better, are something that's going to be at the forefront and be provided with a tool that's never been at the disposal to the degree that it is today. That focus on providing different options for the customer. So years ago, there was talk of omnichannel, and then there was digital transformation, which seemingly was the same thing, only a sequel. The idea now is that it's not just simply a transformation, it's not just picking the right channel of choice, but because of technology, it's actually able to guide the customer to that channel and service the customer in the most efficient and effective way.
Have you seen kind of customer expectations evolve over the time?
I believe they have evolved. As in society, I think that we are expect now, wait later. Expectation that when you have paid for a product or you're receiving a service, that because of that value that's expected, that immediate response, that immediate service is the expectation and the bar that companies have to develop toward. With that in mind, the challenge ends up being that as you're balancing the experience with the operational expense or working toward that operational efficiency, that balanced approach ends up being very difficult. And so the evolution, to your question, has been how much we're pushing toward the speed, how much we're being able to balance the cost, because the introduction of technology many times comes with a cost. And so as we make these decisions and look at the trade-offs, a lot of times there's an unknown. And so in particular at this point in the evolution, there are a number of questions. And so this idea of testing and learning and evolving is at the center of how we would need to operate in order to best serve the customer again.
So going back to sort of AI, because I always think AI is always used all the time, and it's going to play, a much bigger role, I think, as you're saying. How do you ensure that technology will really enhance the customer experience rather than replace the kind of human touch full stop?
I think that the going back to the development comment I made, having the customer at the center is critically important for development. But as it relates to this specific topic, having the human in the center remains critical. An understanding of the human who is served, but also the human who is serving, and that there are more complicated and complex questions that you need to figure out in the most efficient way rather than just pushing out technology. For the addressing the idea of what customers want, price and ease are at their core, the core of those expectations. They prefer a human plus digital experience. When you're optimizing a blend of human plus digital, that's the goal. And it's striking this right balance between human agents, contact center reps, AI solutions. And for us, that allows State Farm to focus on the meaningful customer interactions and community engagement.
So you talked quite a lot about zero touch. What does that mean to you, Ian, and State Farm?
That's actually something I would tell you came significantly before my time at State Farm. And so it would be independent. But ultimately, it's rooted in proactive and anticipatory resolution. It's making it easy for the customer to find what they need. And it's through consistent consideration of root cause in order to better address those customer intents. You have a contact, you're refining the product development, and ultimately what we want to do is just to deliver and delight the customer. Zero touch is the idea that there becomes no contact, that I know exactly why you would have contacted me, and I am not reactive, I'm proactive. I am anticipatory, and I'm smart in how it is that I'm facing off to the customer. in order to be above that bar of expectation.
It's interesting. I mean, we've talked about technology. I think one of the things that I'm hearing with people I talk to is that a lot of employees are getting quite disenfranchised because they kind of get the feeling that, you just have to read the popular press and AI is going to replace all these jobs and all of that. What's your philosophy of kind of developing talent and building teams in an industry where people are talking about, oh, it could just be done by AI?
I think that when you consider the most important assets within an operation, the employee is at the core. If you don't treat the employee well, the customer won't be treated well. There has to be a philosophy of continuous learning, empowerment, and collaboration. By leveraging AI tools to provide real time coaching and insights, we're allowing our people to improve those skills that are going to allow us to deliver that personalized customer experience. We're fostering a supportive environment where feedback's encouraged, and we're helping to build that trust that drives the team's performance in a fast-paced, customer-focused environment. The idea that AI is part of the ecosystem, not the entire ecosystem, and that the center of that ecosystem for us as a company is the employee is really, really important.
So how do you, within State Farm and your own role, kind of foster that team spirit going forward? Because I think, again, a lot of organizations are finding it quite hard with more hybrid working and people working from home and all of that to maintain the kind of customer focused team spirit.
It's a balance, but at State Farm, we believe that taking care of our employees is foundational. It's foundational to delivering exceptional customer service. In our contact center operations, we foster a strong team culture, and it promotes open communication, recognizing the individual, team achievements, and also providing ongoing support through training and wellness resources. We strive to create an environment where associates feel valued, empowered, and they're supported by AI tools that reduce those routine tasks. And so we're able to allow them to focus on the meaningful interactions, which ultimately drive both employee satisfaction and customer success. I think that listening to the employees is really, really important. That feedback loop, the continuous loop with respect to the communication, having listening sessions, understanding that when a communication goes out, you get feedback and acting on the feedback with this idea of we heard you. That ends up being really important, especially when you have a time where technology is so critically important. Being able to understand the feelings of the employees, being able to hear their voice, that's what you have to strive for, I believe, in order to have that two-way communication where it's really one team.
And how do you do that?
It's a combination, right? So I referenced the listening sessions that you have, whether it has to do with immediate team or skip level feedback sessions. With the communication, you're testing if the message was received, you're utilizing surveys, you're having one-on-one meetings. So it's really all about the continuous communication, the continuous feedback, and the adjustments that need to be made. A lot of times, and I think that this is one of the gaps, the adjustment isn't always on the employee side. The adjustment is on the company side because of that idea of the most valued resource being the employee.
And I think a lot of companies play lip service to it. They sort of go, yeah, we communicate a lot. And then, a newsletter once a month from the chairman or the CEO kind of doesn't do it really. So it's good to have that feedback loop. I think that's very important. Going forward with everything ever changing, what are your goals or the goals of State Farm for the next 24 months, say, in field service?
So, with where we are today and how we look forward, the idea of the customer, employee, and the operational efficiency being this three-legged stool that we always have to balance, it does not change at all. It doesn't change relative to where we are on a technology continuum. It doesn't change because AI is now here and we're dealing with what those implications are. We're incorporating that cutting edge technology as a key consideration, and we recognize that that application is going to be critical. We're going to continue to balance people, process, and technology within a consistency or in a consistent manner through a framework where we're implementing these improvements. The next 24 months are going to be tied to embracing technology in a smart way, understanding the implications, and continuing to keep the customer and employee at the center while delivering the business results.
It's really interesting talking to you, Ian, because you're actually there, talking about people, process, and technology. I do some of these podcasts and people go, oh, we're going to do this with AI. We're going to do this with technology. and don't actually think about the overall combination of how you do business improvement, I guess. So that's fascinating. I guess finally, Ian, if you had a magic wand and could solve one challenge in field service, what would it be?
It would go back to my comments on zero touch, anticipatory, not reactive, solving a problem when the customer finds out before they reach out to us, delivering that effortless customer experience that requires no service at all. The goal being perfection through impeccable product design and development. I think that it's a lofty goal, but one that when you take those three inputs that I referenced earlier and you balance them in the most efficient way, you inch closer and closer to it. The other thing I would add is that data is at the core. Being able to harvest the data and leverage it, I think, gets us to a much better place and one where perhaps we could actually attain the lofty goal.
Ian, that's been fascinating talking to you. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.